the sweltering heat of a Charleston attic in July 2024, genealogist Sarah Mitchell made a discovery that would challenge everything historians thought they knew about early 20th century photography. Among her late grandmother's possessions, she found a family photograph that appeared completely normal at first glance. The sepia-toned image showed the Thornton family gathered on their Victorian home's front porch in 1904. William Thornton, a respected Charleston merchant, stood proudly beside his wife Margaret and their 3 children. The youngest daughter clutched a porcelain doll, while the boys wore their Sunday best. Everything about the photograph suggested a typical family portrait from the era. But when Mitchell examined the image more closely under proper lighting, she noticed something extraordinary. Behind the family, partially concealed by the shadow of a porch column, stood another figure. A man in dark clothing, barely visible unless one knew exactly where to look. The mysterious figure's presence raised immediate questions. Portrait photography in 1904 was a formal, carefully orchestrated process. Every element was planned, every person positioned deliberately. Uninvited guests simply didn't appear in family photographs. Photography expert Dr. James Harrison would later describe the image's clarity as exceptional for its time, noting that the level of detail captured was unusual for 1904 camera technology. More puzzling still was the shadowy figure's positioning, clearly intentional yet completely unacknowledged by the family members. The Thornton family appeared completely unaware of the man's presence. Their expressions remained serene, their gazes fixed forward. Yet this mysterious observer seemed to be watching them intently from his concealed position. This photograph would become the starting point for an investigation that would uncover secrets buried for over a century in Charleston's historic archives. Dr. James Harrison, a photography historian at the College of Charleston, had examined thousands of early 20th century photographs throughout his career. When Sarah Mitchell brought him the Thornton family portrait, his initial reaction was professional skepticism. However, detailed analysis revealed anomalies that defied conventional explanation. The photographic quality is remarkable for 1904, Harrison noted during his examination. Most family portraits from this period were taken outdoors due to lighting limitations. The clarity and depth of field here suggest either advanced equipment or unusual circumstances. Under magnification, the shadowy figure became more distinct. Harrison observed that the man appeared to be wearing formal attire typical of the period, a dark suit and bowler hat. His positioning suggested deliberate concealment rather than accidental inclusion in the frame. Harrison consulted historical records of Charleston photography studios operating in 1904. Only 3 establishments possessed equipment sophisticated enough to produce such high-quality images. Cross-referencing these studios with the Thornton family's known social circles yielded interesting results. The Thornton family had been photographed by Marcus Whitmore, owner of Charleston's most prestigious portrait studio. Whitmore's client records, preserved in the Charleston Historical Society, showed the Thornton session scheduled for September 15, 1904. Notably, the appointment notes included an unusual addendum. Special arrangement requested. Harrison discovered that Whitmore's studio had served several prominent Charleston families during this period. Many of these families were connected to the city's thriving maritime trade industry. William Thornton, the family patriarch, owned a successful shipping supply business that served vessels traveling between Charleston and New York. The investigation took an intriguing turn when Harrison found mention of a second photographer present. During some of Whitmore's sessions, a man described only as the shadow operator. This individual allegedly specialized in documenting subjects without their knowledge, though no official records confirmed his identity or purpose. These findings suggested the mysterious figure might be connected to Charleston's maritime business community. Charleston city records from 1904 revealed that William Thornton was more than a simple merchant. His shipping supply business, Thornton Maritime Provisions, held contracts with major steamship lines operating along the eastern seaboard. The company's client list included vessels transporting both passengers and cargo between southern ports and northern cities. Historical documents showed that Thornton's business thrived during a period of significant maritime expansion. The early easy 1900s saw Charleston emerge as a crucial port for commercial shipping, particularly for cotton exports and manufactured goods imports. Thornton's company provided essential supplies, rope, canvas, navigational equipment, and provisions to ships docking at Charleston Harbor. Marriage records indicated that William had married Margaret Sullivan in 1892. The Sullivan family operated a boarding house near the harbor, catering primarily to sailors and maritime workers. This connection placed the Thorntons at the center of Charleston's bustling port community. Property records revealed that the Thornton family home, where the photograph was taken, sat strategically located on Meeting Street, offering clear views of Charleston Harbor. Neighbors included other maritime business owners, ship captains, and harbor officials. The three Thornton children, William Jr., age 16, Thomas, age 12, and Elizabeth, age 8, attended Charleston's prestigious Porter Academy. School records showed excellent academic performance, suggesting the family enjoyed considerable prosperity. However, beneath this respectable facade, investigators discovered hints of complexity. Harbor master logs from 1904 showed unusual patterns in shipping traffic during late summer and early fall. Several vessels arrived unscheduled, docking at night without standard cargo manifests. Contemporary newspaper accounts mentioned increased federal attention to Charleston's port activities during this period. Revenue agents had reportedly increased inspections of incoming vessels, though specific details remained vague. These discoveries suggested that the Thornton family photograph might have captured more than a simple family gathering. The timing of the image, September 1904, coincided with a period of heightened scrutiny in Charleston's maritime community. Charleston Harbor records from September 1904 revealed unusual activity during the week of the Thornton family photograph. Harbor Master Jonathan Blackwood's daily logs, preserved in the South Carolina State Archives, documented several irregularities that caught federal attention. On September 12, 1904, 3 days before the Thornton photograph, the steamship Northern Star arrived unscheduled from New York. The vessel's cargo manifest listed general merchandise, but customs inspector reports noted discrepancies in the documented weights and actual cargo observed during inspection. More significantly, Revenue Agent Samuel Foster had been assigned to Charleston Harbor that month specifically to investigate suspected smuggling operations. Foster's reports, declassified in 1954, mentioned surveillance of several maritime supply businesses, including establishments that served the Northern Star and similar vessels. Federal records showed that smuggling along the eastern seaboard had increased dramatically in 1904, primarily involving luxury goods intended to avoid import tariffs. Charleston's port offered smugglers distinct advantages: numerous small inlets, established maritime infrastructure, and cooperative local business networks. The investigation revealed that William Thornton's maritime provisions had supplied the Northern Star during its unscheduled September visit. Thornton's business records, found in his estate papers, showed payment for emergency provisions delivered at unusual hours. Contemporary Charleston newspaper accounts provided additional context. The Charleston Evening Post reported increased federal presence at the harbor during September 1904, describing heightened vigilance against irregular maritime activities. Local business leaders publicly supported these efforts while privately expressing concerns about federal interference. Revenue Agent Foster's reports specifically mentioned surveillance of the Thornton residence due to its strategic location, overlooking the harbor. Foster noted that the house provided excellent observation points for monitoring vessel movements and harbor activities. These discoveries suggested that the mysterious figure in the family photograph might be connected to federal surveillance operations targeting Charleston's maritime community. The timing of the photograph during peak federal investigation was unlikely to be coincidental. Revenue Agent Samuel Foster's classified reports from September 1904 provided crucial insights into federal operations targeting Charleston Harbor. Foster had arrived in Charleston on August 30, 1904, with specific instructions to investigate suspected customs violations involving luxury goods smuggling. Foster's surveillance notes, meticulously detailed in his daily reports, identified a network of Charleston businesses facilitating irregular maritime activities. The network included ship chandlers, warehouse operators, and transportation companies that served vessels arriving with suspicious cargo manifests. The agents' reports described a sophisticated operation. Smuggled goods, primarily expensive textiles, jewelry, and imported spirits, arrived on legitimate cargo vessels but were offloaded through carefully orchestrated diversions. These items bypassed official customs inspection and entered Charleston's commercial markets without appropriate tariff payments. Thornton Maritime provisions appeared in Foster's reports as a business of interest. While not directly accused of smuggling, the company's unusual delivery schedules and harbor access made it valuable for surveillance purposes. Foster noted that Thornton's employees often worked during evening hours, loading supplies onto vessels under cover of darkness. Federal investigators had identified September 1904 as a critical period for gathering evidence. Multiple intelligence sources indicated that a major smuggling operation was planned for mid-month, coinciding with the arrival of several northern cargo vessels. Foster's reports mentioned recruiting local informants to gather intelligence about suspicious activities. These informants included harbor workers, boarding house operators, and even photographers who had access to Charleston's maritime community. The investigation revealed that federal agents sometimes posed as business associates, tradesmen, or service providers to maintain surveillance without arousing suspicion. This strategy allowed them to document activities and identify key participants in suspected smuggling networks. Contemporary records showed that the federal investigation culminated in late September 1904, when authorities seized contraband goods valued at over $50,000, equivalent to approximately $1.8 million today. Several Charleston businesses faced federal charges, though specific details remained classified for decades. These findings suggested that the shadowy figure in the Thornton photograph might be Agent Foster himself, conducting surveillance during a critical period of his investigation. Advanced digital enhancement of the Thornton family photograph, performed by forensic imaging specialist Dr. Elena Rodriguez at the FBI's Charleston field office, revealed previously invisible details about the mysterious figure. Using techniques unavailable to earlier investigators, Rodriguez isolated and clarified the shadowy presence behind the family. The enhanced image showed a man approximately 35-40 years old, wearing a dark wool suit typical of federal agents in 1904. Most significantly, the man held what appeared to be a small notebook and pencil, suggesting he was documenting the scene rather than merely observing it. Dr. Rodriguez's analysis revealed additional details about the photograph's composition. The lighting and positioning suggest this individual was specifically included in the frame, she explained. This wasn't accidental. Someone wanted him captured in the image, even if subtly. Comparison with known photographs of revenue agent Samuel Foster, obtained from federal personnel records, showed striking similarities to the enhanced image. Foster's height, build, and facial features matched the mysterious figure's observable characteristics. Historical analysis of Foster's activities during September 1904 provided context for his presence at the Thornton residence. Federal surveillance logs showed that Foster had established observation posts at multiple locations overlooking Charleston Harbor. The Thornton house, with its elevated position and clear sight lines, would have been ideal for monitoring harbor activities. The investigation revealed that Foster had developed relationships with several Charleston families during his investigation. These relationships provided cover for his surveillance activities while allowing him to gather intelligence about local maritime operations. Photographer Marcus Whitmore's studio records contained additional clues. A previously overlooked entry described a special commission requested by a federal associate during the Thornton family session. The commission involved documenting specific individuals present during the photography session. This evidence suggested that the Thornton family photograph served dual purposes, preserving family memories while creating documentation for the federal investigation. The timing, September 15, 1904, placed the photograph exactly 1 week before the major contraband seizure that concluded Foster's investigation. The photograph had captured a moment of intersection between family life and federal law enforcement. In early 20th century Charleston, federal case files from the Charleston Contraband Investigation of 1904 revealed the full scope of the smuggling network that Revenue Agent Foster had infiltrated. The operation involved a sophisticated alliance of Charleston merchants, ship captains, and harbor officials who had been diverting luxury goods from legitimate cargo shipments. The network's leader was identified as Captain Marcus Sullivan, Margaret, Thornton's brother and an experienced steamship captain who regularly traveled between Charleston and New York. Sullivan used his legitimate shipping connections to coordinate the smuggling operation, providing inside information about customs, inspection schedules, and vessel arrivals. William Thornton's role in the network was more complex than initially suspected. While Thornton Maritime Provisions legitimately supplied ships docking at Charleston Harbor, federal investigators discovered that Thornton also provided storage and transportation services for smuggled goods. His warehouse, located near the harbor, served as a temporary holding facility for contraband items before their distribution to Charleston merchants. The smuggling operation relied on precise timing and coordination. Legitimate cargo vessels would arrive at Charleston Harbor with hidden compartments containing luxury goods. These items were quickly offloaded during routine supply operations, often under cover of loading legitimate provisions from businesses like Thornton's. Foster's investigation revealed that the network had been operating successfully for over 2 years before federal attention intensified in 1904. The operation generated substantial profits. Customs documents showed that the avoided tariffs totaled over $200,000, representing millions of dollars in today's currency. The September 15, 1904, Thornton family photograph was taken just as Foster's investigation reached its climax. Federal agents had gathered sufficient evidence to begin arrests, but they needed final documentation of key participants and locations. Foster's presence in the photograph served as evidence that he had successfully infiltrated the Thornton household during the critical final phase of his investigation. His position in the shadows symbolically represented his covert role in exposing the smuggling network. The federal raids began on September 22, 1904, exactly 1 week after the family photograph was taken. Multiple Charleston businesses were searched simultaneously, and substantial quantities of contraband goods were seized. On September 22, 1904, federal agents conducted coordinated raids across Charleston, targeting the smuggling network that Revenue Agent Foster had spent months infiltrating. The operation began at dawn, with agents simultaneously searching multiple locations, including warehouses, private residences, and business establishments. William Thornton was arrested at his maritime supply business as federal agents discovered hidden compartments containing smuggled silk fabrics, jewelry, and imported spirits valued at over $15,000. The raid revealed that Thornton's warehouse had been modified with concealed storage areas specifically designed to hide contraband goods. Captain Marcus Sullivan, the network's leader, was apprehended aboard his steamship Coastal Pride as it prepared to depart Charleston Harbor. Federal agents found detailed records of smuggling operations, including schedules, contact information, and financial accounts documenting the network's extensive activities. The arrests sent shockwaves through Charleston's maritime community. Local newspapers described the raids as the largest federal law enforcement operation in the city's recent history. The Charleston Evening Post reported that respected business leaders and their associates faced serious federal charges. Margaret Thornton and the children were not charged, as federal investigators determined they had no knowledge of William's illegal activities. However, the family faced social ostracism and financial ruin as their assets were seized pending legal proceedings. Foster's undercover work proved crucial to the prosecution's case. His detailed documentation, including photographs and surveillance notes, provided evidence of the network's operations and key participants' roles. The family photograph served as proof of Foster's successful infiltration of the Thornton household. The legal proceedings continued through early 1905. William Thornton ultimately received a 5-year federal prison sentence, while Captain Sullivan faced 10 years for organizing the smuggling operation. Several other Charleston businessmen received lesser sentences for their participation. The Thornton family's social standing never recovered from the scandal. Margaret Thornton was forced to sell their Meeting Street home and relocate with her children to a modest residence in Charleston's suburbs. The family's maritime business was permanently shuttered. These events explained why later generations of the Thornton family rarely discussed their early 20th century ancestors. Following William Thornton's conviction and imprisonment in 1905, his family faced devastating consequences that would shape their lives for generations. Margaret Thornton, left to raise 3 children alone, struggled to maintain stability while dealing with the social stigma attached to their family name. The forced sale of their Meeting Street home yielded minimal proceeds after federal liens and legal fees. Margaret moved her family to a small house on Charleston's outskirts, far from their former social circle and the harbor district that had brought them both prosperity and ruin. The Thornton children adapted to their dramatically changed circumstances in different ways. William Jr., age 17 during his father's trial, left Charleston immediately after graduating from Porter Academy. He moved to Atlanta, changed his name to William Thompson, and never returned to South Carolina. His descendants would have no knowledge of their Charleston ancestry. Thomas Thornton, age 13 when the scandal broke, remained with his mother but struggled with the family's reputation throughout his adolescence. He eventually became a railroad clerk, married quietly, and rarely spoke about his father or their family's past. His children, including Sarah Mitchell's grandmother, grew up knowing only that their grandfather had died young. Elizabeth Thornton, the youngest child at age 9, suffered perhaps the most from the family's social isolation. Withdrawn from Porter Academy due to financial constraints, she received limited education and married early to escape the family's circumstances. Her own children knew virtually nothing about their Charleston heritage. Margaret Thornton maintained strict silence about the events of 1904, instructing her children never to discuss their father's imprisonment or the family's former life. This imposed silence became a family tradition that persisted for over a century. Revenue agent Samuel Foster continued his federal career, eventually becoming a supervisor in the Treasury Department's Customs Enforcement Division. His detailed reports about the Charleston investigation remained classified until the 1950s, when they were transferred to the National Archives as historical documents. The family photograph, hidden away by Margaret Thornton, survived as the only visual evidence connecting the family to their prosperous past and their tragic downfall. Sarah Mitchell's discovery of the 1904 family photograph and subsequent investigation had uncovered a hidden chapter of Charleston history that had remained buried for 120 years. The revelation that her great-great-grandfather William Thornton had been involved in a federal smuggling investigation and that revenue agent Samuel Foster had been captured in their family photograph provided closure to a century-old mystery. The investigation's findings were donated to the Charleston Historical Society, where they became part of the permanent collection documenting the city's maritime heritage. Dr. James Harrison published a scholarly article about the photograph in the Journal of Southern History, describing it as a unique artifact that captures the intersection of family life and federal law enforcement in early 20th century America. For Sarah Mitchell, the discovery provided unexpected insight into her family's carefully guarded secrets. The truth about William Thornton's imprisonment explained her grandmother's reluctance to discuss their Charleston ancestry and the family's apparent disconnection from their Southern roots. The enhanced photograph, clearly showing Agent Foster in the shadows, became a symbol of how historical truth can remain hidden in plain sight for generations. Photography experts noted that the image demonstrated the early use of surveillance documentation techniques that would become standard in federal investigations. Charleston's tourism board embraced the story as part of the city's rich historical narrative. The original Thornton house on Meeting Street, now a private residence, received a historical marker commemorating its role in the 1904 federal investigation. The broader implications of the discovery extended beyond the Thornton family. The investigation revealed how federal law enforcement operations in the early 1900s relied on community infiltration and surveillance techniques that presaged modern investigative methods. Most importantly, the truth about the family photograph allowed the Thornton descendants to finally understand their heritage. Rather than shame, Sarah Mitchell felt pride in her ancestors' complex story, a tale of prosperity, poor judgment, consequences, and resilience that reflected the broader American experience. The photograph now hangs in Sarah Mitchell's Charleston, home no longer a mystery but a bridge connecting past and present, shadows and light.